Well, we're still weeks away from training camp, but there's a lot going on, Dub Nation. Stephen Curry recently did an interview with Rolling Stone where he touched back on everyone's favorite topic, Kevin Durant. Steve Kerr did an interview where he provided some insights about the Warriors roster and his personal thoughts on some of the players. Draymond Green gave an impassioned speech following his jersey ceremony retirement at Michigan State University. We're going to cover all that and more with Kylen Mills next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. So is Kylen Mills on Twitter. You can follow her on Twitter at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. And just to remind people, Kylen joins the show now every Monday and Friday, starting the week, ending the week, or starting the weekend and ending the weekend, however you want to spin it. Kylen, how are you doing? And do anything exciting this weekend? Was it chill? What'd you do?
Pretty chill. I did go to my first ever bonfire at Ocean Beach in San Francisco. So I'd never gone and experienced one of those. I had a friend who was celebrating a birthday, did an early bonfire night. It was great. We all went home at 9. That's what I love at the age, over 30. So great weekend. All in all,
Absolutely.
great weekend. I thought it was really cool. Also, we lucked out. It was super warm on Saturday night. Like, all I'd heard from people is, like, if you go to Ocean Beach at night, like, bundle up, dress for winter. And we really lucked out. It was, like, over 60 degrees, like, well after dark. So it was great.
And do you hype up? Is your Instagram account more like is it public? Is it more personal? Because
people posting on my Instagram account. I mean, here's the thing: like working in media, like I just kind of gave up on having any like private social media. It just kind of like It is what it is. Like I'm gonna post something, it needs to be for public consumption, and it's hard to have any secrets. I want to be transparent anyway about my life and connecting with people. So yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Kylen Mills, and
there you go.
Anyone can follow me. It's not a private page. I mean,
there you go.
I don't know. I just feel like it's so hard to have to keep up with 2 separate pages of everything, which like I know some people do, like 2 separate Facebook, 2 separate Twitter, 2 separate, Instagram. And I'm like, I just like don't have time and honestly forget to post as it is. And it's just like double posting. I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm still double. My Instagram's very personal, but my Twitter is the public persona. But I hear you. I just wanted to hype it up because you were posting your stories. You do a lot of great content with the stories on your Instagram account, including your Ocean Beach videos. So people want to follow you on Twitter or Instagram at Kylen Mills. Yeah, I don't do Facebook. That just got old for me. Too intrusive. It's almost like it people seem to use it to replace personal relationships, whatever. When people aren't here to talk about social media, we're here to talk about the Warriors. Okay, so
let's go.
I wanted to start the show with Stephen Curry, who did a full-on profile piece with Rolling Stone magazine, one of my favorite publications, even if they don't quite have the cachet they did in the 70s and 80s, but they're still awesome. And the full interview was released today. We're recording this on Monday, September 12th. But there was like a tease that was released late last week in regard to Stephen Curry's comments on Kevin Durant. For those folks who forgot, I doubt you did, but there was a brief moment in the summer where the Warriors were flirting with the idea of Kevin Durant. And it really drove me crazy. Hypocrisy, Kylen, just drives me up the wall. It represents a blatant flaw in human character. When you say one thing but believe in another, I'm not a big fan of flip-flopping. I don't like people who don't have much conviction in their character. And a lot of Warriors fans, I learned, just go with the wind. They're fair weather individuals who it's all about what's trending, what other people are favoring, what's happening just at the moment. And the reason why I bring that up is because a year ago, when I would talk about Kevin Durant, and I'm still critical of the fact that he left the Warriors and this region, this fan base, the organization, without giving a reason why he left. All right. That's all I ever wanted. Just tell us why you decided to bail on a team and a region that showed nothing but love and support to you. I think we all know the reason why he left, but he's never explained it himself. We've never heard it from his words. And I used to have so much vitriol directed back at me when I'd published this form of criticism, saying, with comments like, "Oh, KD gave 3 years to the Warriors. They went to 3 straight NBA Finals. They won 2 championships with them. How dare you criticize KD? He's a Warrior for life." And then you fast forward 1 year later, the Warriors win a championship without him. And then all of a sudden there's talk about KD maybe coming to the Warriors based off his trade request. And then now you have all these same people going to the other side of the coin saying, "Oh, we don't need him. He's a traitor. He left this organization without explaining why. The Warriors don't need him. We don't need to give up assets to acquire him back." And it's just crazy to me. It just goes to show a lot of people just lack conviction in their opinions and beliefs and values. And the reason why I'm saying this is because Steph and Curry really wanted Kevin Durant. In this interview, and again, I was telling people from the start, the Warriors did really want him. They would not have gone to their players bringing this subject up. Stephen Curry was reaching out to Kevin Durant himself. They communicated. So did Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. They were involved in discussions as well. This trade could have been a reality. Even Stephen Curry's brother, Seth Curry, was attributed in this piece saying, quote, "For him to even be entertaining the thought of having KD back on the team kind of speaks to his character. Who knows? I might be in the trade with him." Steph, unquote. Seth Curry said that on July 13th. Steph went on and said a lot of positive things. And I'll read this one quote to you, especially from the interview. This is from Stephen Curry, quote, "I was never hesitant. The idea of playing with KD and knowing who he is as a person from our history in those 3 years, I think KD's a really good dude. I think he is misunderstood. I think he has had certain things happen in his life that hurt his ability to trust people around him in a sense of making him feel safe at all times. So all those things I understand, having played with him and gone to know him. I love that dude." Love is on italics, unquote. He also added that, when it came to the idea of Kevin Durant coming to the Warriors in a blockbuster trade, Steph Curry's response was, "Hell yeah," in terms of being in support of it. He had to toe a line in this interview because trading for Kevin Durant made you might lose some of your current assets. Andrew Wiggins was mentioned regularly. Jordan Poole was mentioned regularly. But it just goes to show, again, this trade was a strong possibility. I still don't think it's entirely ruled out down the road. If KD continues to grumble and if Andrew Wiggins, for whatever reason, there's a possibility he might not come back next year, I still won't be surprised if a trade happens and the Warriors get him somehow. I know it's unlikely at this point. Kylen, what was your first impression from this? You saw those attributions, that the excerpt of the full interview came out last week. What were your thoughts when you first heard that Stephen Curry was strongly entertaining the idea of Kevin Durant and loves him?
None of that was a huge shock to me, Cy. I think mostly it just confirmed what we've said on this podcast, what we've been discussing, what reports were out that, Curry was calling Kevin Durant, that they were having talks about it, and, multiple sources that were reporting that the Warriors core was more than open. They would welcome KD back with open arms. So to me, this just kind of reaffirmed everything that was out there in regards to how those conversations went. I think that what Curry said does speak to who KD is more so behind closed doors, because I think it's interesting. He talked about, playing with him, actually getting to know him. I think he's a really good dude. He's just misunderstood. And part of that, I think, is because of the public persona KD puts out with the stuff that he says on Twitter, the, clapping back at people and, just some of the pettiness. And I think that makes him unlikable to a lot of fans. And also just the way that he's jumped teams several times throughout his career has made him unlikable to fans. But again, these are people that don't know him personally. So I think that definitely says something about who he is. For Steph Curry, who is someone who has the highest of character, to come to bat for him, I think speaks very highly of Kevin Durant. That being said, I understand fans' frustration or dislike for KD due to some of the reasons that I just said. But behind closed doors, Steph Curry thinks he's a good person, and that means something. Now, I think that Steph Curry is more than happy to come back and run it back with the group that they currently have. I know you mentioned having to toe the line, but I do think that he meant what he said in the second part of that interview, where he also said, hey, I would have said hell yeah to Kevin Durant coming back, but if the pieces weren't there and the trade wasn't there, that would have been beneficial ultimately to the Warriors, they weren't willing to give up all of these things, then to me, it also seems like it's a hell yeah to run it back with a group that we have.
Yeah.
He didn't literally say hell yeah in the interview, but like this team is going to be better than they were last year when they won an NBA championship with the personnel that they currently have right now. So, I mean, what reason would Curry have to be, apprehensive about the current group? I mean, he has none. And James Wiseman's coming back, and Klay Thompson should be better, and the last year's rookies are coming back with a year under their belt. I mean, there's absolutely nothing not to love. I don't know if I phrased that right. But there's no reason for him to be apprehensive about this group. And I think that that's why he wanted to make clear that he made those comments, because like anyone returning on the Warriors this season should be thrilled. Like they have all the tools in place to win back-to-back championships. So I do want to throw that caveat out there that like, yes, he said hell yeah to Durant, but like, I don't think by any means is that undercutting any of the current players on the team, or does that mean he's not excited about this season? It just kind of reaffirms what we knew, or at least what we thought, in that while those discussions were very seriously going on, that Steph Curry was on board. And I think Klay Thompson and Draymond Green were very clearly on board, or it never would have even come up or moved forward. We'll just have to see how long KD stays in New York. I mean, right now, all is well in Brooklyn, but I'm kind of holding my breath to see how long that actually lasts.
Right.
And then we may be having this discussion again. Who knows?
We might. In just a moment, I'm going to read the rest of that quote that you're referring to in regard to how Steph feels about the current team. And I want to pose the question of like, why people are so down on the idea. A lot of people are very down on the idea of trading for Kevin Durant. I don't get that part of it. I'm going to delve into that in just a moment. Got to give some love first to a longtime sponsor of this program, BetOnline, and more specifically, BetOnline.net. They're your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports information this season. NFL football started yesterday. The Niners suck. That's okay. Maybe they'll turn things around. But you can find all of the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Which NBA player moves the betting line the most this season? Locked On and the BetOnline odds makers present the NBA top 50 most valuable players starting on September 19th. Find it on Locked On NBA, wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills. I just want to read the rest of this quote first real quick, or at least one more paragraph from it, just following up. In regard to the rest of his team, here's what Stephen Curry had to say, quote, "And if you said, oh, KD's coming back and we're going to play with them, I had so much fun playing with them those 3 years. I'd be like, hell yeah. Then you have to think, what does that actually mean? What does it look like? You tell me I'm playing with current Warriors teammates Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, and Draymond Green. I'm like, hell yeah. There's all types of emotion and things that happen to the league. And if anybody's saying that you wouldn't entertain that conversation, no disrespect to anybody on our team, but you don't know how things work. But you also understand, like, if we run this thing back, I've got complete confidence in my team that we can win it again as constructed." So all those things were true. And it started with me wanting to play with KD at the beginning. Yeah, it's about winning. It's about having fun, playing the game of basketball. And that was part of the reaction of like, yeah, it'd be amazing. What does that actually mean? Unquote. So I think what Steph Curry is implying there is that obviously he's not against the idea of playing with Kevin Durant again. And here's the part that blows my mind, Kylen. I don't know if you agree or disagree with this. If the Warriors made the trade for Kevin Durant and you weren't giving up the entire farm, let's say it was like Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, and James Wiseman, and 2 firsts. Let's say like that's what you're giving up to get Kevin Durant back. Why? Like a lot of people are opposed to that idea. A lot of people don't want to tinker with this team. I am of the belief, and in case you're ever wondering, like how I decide to make predictions, what do I make my judgments on based off initial observations? I play the probability game. To me, like when you're at a fork in a road and you have two decisions to make, and you're trying to achieve success, like you are with a sports team, with a basketball team, and the Warriors in this instance, it's all about probabilities. Which road presents a higher probability for success? And in this case, with the Warriors, you have two roads. You have the Warriors giving up with this hypothetical trade, Wiggins, Jordan Poole, James Wiseman, for Kevin Durant, but you get Kevin Durant back. So then, if Kevin Durant is on this team, they're going to win a championship next year. There's like no debate. I don't think that it's the odds would be so astronomically in the Warriors' favor to repeat as world champions that it weirds me out as to why so many people are opposed to the thought. I get that you're sacrificing some future in the process. I get Kevin Durant is turning 34, but isn't the goal to win championships? If you bring Kevin Durant in, you're guaranteed of a repeat championship. You're pretty much guaranteed of a three-peat if Kevin Durant comes in. Meanwhile, the players that you're holding on to, you're not necessarily getting guarantees of success. Wiggins, I think we know what we're getting from him, fair. Jordan Poole, we don't know what we're getting defensively yet. Offensively, he's turning into a star, if not a superstar. But when you talk about the other players that might be involved, there's Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, James Wiseman, these are projects. I mean, we still really don't know what we're going to get with them. So when you're talking about the probability argument, you 100% know what you're getting with Kevin Durant for at least the next 2-3 years. You're getting one of the greatest players in the history of the game. You're getting almost a guaranteed repeat world championship, maybe a three-peat. Whereas if you go this other route, yeah, maybe you're better set up for the future, but there's absolutely no guarantees that the dynasty continues. We're already starting to see like some wavering in terms of general public opinion about Jonathan Kuminga. So I don't know. It just blew my mind that so many people, I'm not advocating for a Kevin Durant trade saying this, but I was never like opposed to it. I was never like just taken aback at the idea of it. I actually was sort of welcoming it if they decided to go that route. And I just don't understand why so many people were opposed to the idea of Kevin Durant coming to the Warriors. Your thought on everything I just said?
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate side.
Please,
This isn't necessarily what I think, but here's what the public perception is from a lot of fans of Kevin Durant. And the reason why I think they wouldn't want him to come back to the Warriors is because he's viewed as a malcontent, I think, by a lot of people because of some of the moves that he's made in his career. First, you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. He had a great run there. He never could quite get over the hump. And then he jumps to what at the time was considered a super team. And there was a ton of criticism when he came to the Warriors, a team that already won a championship, when he hadn't been able to beat them with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And now he's basically, jumping on the bandwagon as a lot of people viewed it. Again, not saying my personal feelings, but playing devil's advocate here.
Right.
A lot of people super critical of that move. Like you can't get it done in Oklahoma City, so you're just going to jump on the super team. And then, 2 championships with the Warriors. Great. Everything's going well. And then, there was some awkwardness towards the end of his tenure with the Warriors before he decided he wanted to move on to the Nets. Of course, as we've heard from Steph Curry, those relationships are all intact and they're great, but there was a time where it was like a little odd when he was injured and you kind of knew he was leaving and he got real testy with the media. So I don't know that it was like a perfect goodbye, but then, he's already on this championship team and he's so beloved here. And then he's like, all right, well, see ya. I want to move on and do it myself, and I'm going to move on to the Nets. And that was another move that, some Warriors fans or a lot of fans just in general in the NBA were critical of. So then he goes to New York. What happens in New York? A couple years there, he's not successful. The team just can't gel. There's not great chemistry. It just doesn't all come together. And now he's demanding a trade there and wants to move on. So I think that because of some of those moves that he's made, that there is this perception that he's, some type of chemistry killer or, like I said, a malcontent. I don't know. I've seen people say this, that, oh, well, he's going to be a cancer to the Warriors team chemistry. He's not a team player, blah, 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 blah. I think based on what he did with the Warriors, he still was absolutely a team player. Didn't he he ended up taking a cut below the maximum when he did decline his player option.
Correct.
In what was that, 2018? Gosh, sorry, the years all run together.
I
So I don't necessarily,
right.
I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that Kevin Durant isn't a team player, but I'm just saying that there is a certain perception of him because of some of those moves. And the thing is, right now, the Warriors have a great chemistry, and they are such a fun group to watch, and they play team basketball, and they move the ball, and they have all of these intangibles going for them. I just think a lot of fans don't want to see that broken up and are concerned about, well, Kevin Durant comes here, and who's to say the relationship doesn't sour and he's not unhappy in a year or in 2 years? I know you're talking about, they could potentially repeat or three-peat or whatever. Like, who's to say that he's not unhappy in a year for some reason or another? And it's hard to speculate too, because we don't know exactly what happened in Brooklyn or in some of these past situations. We don't necessarily know what went on behind closed doors to make him decide to move on. But I think there are questions there that a lot of fans are asking in regards to if he were to return, who's to say everything would be smooth sailing? As much as Steph Curry loves him, there's still all kinds of, moving parts. And the fact of the matter is that Durant has been unhappy times in the past when it seemed like things were going well, even when he left the Warriors to, go do it himself. So like I said, just playing devil's advocate, I think that's a big, reason why some fans are concerned. Like right now, the team has a really, really great chemistry. They have a good thing going. They are doing a really great job of marrying development and win now mentality. So, it's just, why break that up? Like why break that up? Like, yes, he's a star. We could win championships, but again, like who's to say in a year he's like, I'm not happy anymore. I want to leave. You know what? I'm not happy being back on a super team. I'm not happy playing second fiddle to Steph Curry, because ultimately, like, fans loved Kevin Durant, but like no one's ever going to surpass Steph Curry in people's hearts and minds, and in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, and in Golden State fans across the country. So who's to say in a year he's like, what, never mind. I still do want to do this by myself, or I want to go somewhere where I am going to be, the number one, or whatever else. And I think that's fair. I think it's fair for fans to assume or to question. I just, without knowing what's gone on behind closed doors throughout his career, there's no way that any of us can really know exactly what's gone down with Kevin Durant and let him to make the decisions he's made. But I do think it's fair that some fans are like, hey, let's not fix something that's not broken. Like, we like what we have, what's going here. And with the Kevin Durant, some of the moves he's made, like, who's to say he comes here and even is happy? So that's where I'm gonna stop.
No. You did it. And in all honesty, like, until Stephen Curry's recent quotes in this interview, I would have wholeheartedly agree with you. And it's a huge reason why I wasn't maybe advocating for Kevin Durant, is because you're right. All those reasons you listed were legitimate concerns. Who wants a toxicity back in the locker room? But when I'm reading these quotes, it sounds like Stephen Curry was really excited about the idea. I mean, he didn't have to exude this level of emotion. He didn't have to exude this level of happiness. His own brother is now discussing potentially being included in the trade back. And the Seth Curry part of it was always important for me. Like, I wouldn't have been happy with the trade without Seth also coming, but with Seth Curry coming in the package, that it didn't sound bad to me. I was thinking about it, and I'm looking at this roster, and I'm going, wow. So you're talking about a rosters team where you're basically swapping Wiggins, Poole, and one of the youngsters for Kevin Durant and Seth Curry. And I thought Seth Curry could kind of neutralize the loss of Jordan Poole, especially. But I hear what you're saying, though, at the same time. I mean, there's a reason why the front office did not move really aggressively in this deal, even though they did reach out multiple times. That part of it is is confirmed. I'm sorry. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, ultimately, this is all just fodder. We're just talking about it.
Exactly.
But it's also September 12th.
I think based on what Curry said, though, I mean, the encouraging thing is that clearly, like, he still has a great relationship with the Warriors players. So, like, who's to say he would be any type of toxicity in the locker room? I just I get where people are coming from and being concerned in regards to, hey, look how he's jumped from team to team. Look how things have ended in other whatever. Yeah. But I mean, when you look at what the actual players are saying, and that's what matters, is that they love KD. If he were to come here like that, there's not automatically going to be some issues. But, I think people question that because he has jumped around and kind of been unhappy places,
Absolutely. And then changing gears here, and everyone's probably really happy that we are now. Steve Kerr was on the Warriors flagship radio station here in the San Francisco Bay Area, 95.7 The Game. where your husband sometimes fills in as a host.
Yes.
And so Steve Kerr does regular segments, I believe, with the the afternoon drive time show with Damon Bruce and Ray Ratto. Damon Bruce, who comes on the show sometimes, old friend of mine. He said some interesting things on the show. I wanted to first touch on his comments on Andre Iguodala, where basically, and really there was no transparency here. This is the first time this topic was really delved into with either Steve Kerr or Bob Myers. They haven't addressed it that much during this offseason. But Kerr said that, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, what?
No, I just said, yeah, they really haven't addressed it. It's like been silent since right after the NBA finals, pretty much. So for the last going on, 3 months.
So Kerr was quoted as saying, Bob and I talked to Andre early in the summer, and we just said, you have earned the right to do whatever you want and to take as much time as you want. Bob and I giving him the space to make whatever decision he wants, and we'll support him either way. We hope he comes back. I can tell you that. Now, Iguodala also said something on his podcast. I believe it's called Point Forward. Iguodala was quoted as saying, I'll be making it from here, point forward, whether I'm taking my talents back to the Warriors or taking my talents somewhere else or taking my black ass home, Iguodala told Evan Turner, his co-host. And those are his words, not mine. Please don't quote me on that. But the insinuation here is that Andre Iguodala, well, first of all, what surprised me with that quote is that he's thrown out the idea of playing for another team, which is really weird. I don't know why he would do that. I don't understand what the point is. I don't know if he's still looking for a few extra dollars from another team, if that's what him throwing that out into the public sphere, if that's the intent. That part is bizarre to me. I don't understand why you would say that unless you literally want some few extra dollars from someone else. But then that just kind of, makes me wonder question his loyalty to the Warriors at this stage of his career. Regardless, the decision's going to be made soon, apparently. I don't know, any thoughts from that? It was just nice to hear finally like what the whole thought process is behind just letting him take his sweet ass time. Is he's earned it. That's how Bob Myers and Kerr are approaching this. But then Iguodala is like, I might just go somewhere else. I don't know your thoughts on that.
It doesn't make sense to me that Andre Iguodala would go somewhere else. I mean, how many more years does he have left? Like, to me, if he comes back this season, like, this has got to be it, right? And like, why not end it? And why not retire as a Warrior after all that he's accomplished here? And he's so beloved by this fan base. He's beloved by his teammates. He's really made an impact here. Like, it would just be so unceremonious to like go to a random team and to finish out his career there for a season or two. So I also think that's really strange. My inkling, and before hearing that actual quote though, I was talking to someone about this the other day, is like, I just don't think Andre would drag out a retirement announcement. Like, my inkling is that like, if he's dragging out this decision, that he's leaning towards coming back. If that makes any sense. I don't know. Like, I just think that if he had it in his heart and mind that like this was it, that he wanted to retire, that he would have come to that conclusion by now. And, like after the finals, you have some time off and you're away from the game. And like, if you feel like you're happy and your cup is full and you're ready to call it, like, I just don't understand how now we're coming up in the second week of September and we're still talking about whether or not he's coming back and he still hasn't made that decision. So I just feel like after winning the championship, like if that was it for him and that's, kind of his final hurrah, like I don't see how he wouldn't have come to that decision already.
It's weird.
Before September 12th. So then that makes me think that he's leaning more towards coming back and like maybe hasn't been able to completely commit to that or, make that final decision, but that he's leaning that direction. And that's why he's delayed making an announcement, because he's kind of thinking he wants to come back. Maybe he's thinking, well, I should retire. My body maybe can't, but I want to come back. So to me that indicates to me, or at least that gives me the impression that he in some capacity wants to come back and play if he hasn't just gone ahead and made the announcement already almost 3 months later. I don't know. Like I said, those comments from him though were kind of like off the wall. So I'm not really sure what to make of it, but I think that at least a big part of, I'd say more than half of Andre Iguodala wants to come back and play again, just because of, to me, justifying how it's taken him so long to make an announcement. Like, that's where I would think his head is at, is that ultimately what he'll decide. Maybe he'll pull a Tom Brady. He'll like retire and then end up coming out of retirement and realizing that he's not happy. I don't know. But I just think like if it was really, really in your heart that it was time, like you would have made the decision by now. It's been 3 months that you've been away from the game during the off season.
Absolutely. In the same story from Jared Castillo of NBC Sports, Iguodala reportedly is not interested in coaching, but Steve
Yeah.
Kerr indicated that his mentorship role with the team is so invaluable. I can't emphasize enough not only the importance of his ability to calm Draymond Green down, but supposedly I also learned recently that he's actually has played a strong influence on Jonathan Kuminga and has played a role in his growth. So I see the value in him coming back, and I do hope he comes back for one more year. I know I've echoed different sentiments in the past, but he does bring such a positive influence to the locker room that I am not opposed at all to him coming back for one more year. You also I didn't hear the whole interview. You did. What did Kurt talk about in terms of Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole? I know he talked about each of those players, correct?
Yes, I listened to both those topics as well. But one more thing on Iguodala, like
Yeah,
my qualm is just that like I don't know that his body can handle playing in the NBA anymore. However, like I guess the Warriors front office, you have to weigh it is,
yeah.
like where does his mentorship outweigh his ability to contribute on the court for a full season, for even a half a season, for a third of a season, and especially if he's not willing to take on a full coaching role, then you have to weigh how important is it to bring back just the mentorship side, even if you're willing to go to bed at night realizing that he may be very limited in games that he can play in during the
Yeah,
season.
you're absolutely
I
right.
think especially though, like as we've heard a lot more about kind of there's been some, more reports have unfolded and stuff that we kind of already heard throughout the year in regards to Jonathan Kuminga and maybe some of his growing pains and, experiences he's gone through really maturing in the league. Um, like I think that Andre's mentorship could absolutely be critical specifically for him. And with the high ceiling that Jonathan Kuminga has, like this is such an important time in his career where he really
Mhm.
needs veterans and leaders to help him figure out how to get there to that potential and be a professional. And I know Draymond Green is another player who's had a huge influence on him, but then like Andre really took him under his wing. And clearly to me, like based on what we saw in Summer League from Kuminga and just some of the additional reports that have come out, like he's not quite there yet.
Mhm.
So like I almost feel like they need Andre back to really, help guide him specifically. And then also potentially James Wiseman, because like he's going to be coming back with really very little NBA experience and he's, been through it the last 2 years. And, those are two bigs that are going to need some real veteran help. And like it can't
Mhm.
all be Draymond Green. I know he's one who really steps up and goes out of his way to try to, bring those guys under his wing. But I think Andre's contribution could definitely be critical, even if he's not contributing on the court. Is
You're
that worth
absolutely right.
the veteran minimum salary? I don't know. I don't even want to get into the debate, but I do think that what he brings to the team in terms of leadership shouldn't be overlooked. Okay, sorry. Now back to what we were just saying about the rest of that interview. Okay, first topic that I did want to talk to you about was that Steve Kerr was asked about Jordan Poole and just kind of was asked about what he's expecting from some of the different players on the team this season. And he, first of all, just, commended Jordan Poole for the incredible effort he had last season, especially in the postseason, his first time making a run to the championship, and he really put in some critical minutes, had some big games. And he's come such a long way offensively. Steve Kerr said that we couldn't ask anything more from him on offense. Obviously, I feel like this goes without saying. The biggest area for improvement is his defense. There were a couple times during that Boston series where Poole looked like a liability, and they were singling him out absolutely, and he got lit up a couple times.
Right. He
Oh
did.
God, there was that viral clip where was it Jaylen Brown? I can't remember, or was it Jason Tatum? Someone blew by him, and he literally looked like his feet were like stuck in concrete as he just like stood there. However, Kerr said that, he thinks that Jordan Poole has the potential to be a two-way player and that he saw flashes of better defense, but he's just not consistent at this point. He's like, consistency is the biggest thing. You have to be, strong and consistent on defense every single play, not like, oh, that was a good defensive play. Oh, now, they just blew by you and you looked like you were a traffic cone, like you
Mhm.
can't go from one to the other to be a true two-way player. However, Kerr has also mentioned how much Curry has improved throughout his career and is now, being called by some as a two-way player. I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But who's to say Jordan Poole can't get there, and he's still very young. So Kerr sounded very optimistic, but he definitely was clear that defense, he needs to be more consistent, but he thinks Jordan Poole has potential. My question to you, Cyrus, is did you feel like you saw flashes of Jordan Poole being good on defense? And
No.
do you think that so kind of that was like immediately where my mind went when Kerr kind of talked about consistency. And he's like, we saw times where he has the potential to be a two-way player. I mean, do you think that this is Jordan Poole's ceiling on defense, or do you think that he could potentially
No.
get there?
My strong philosophy on defense in basketball, and just based off my own experience and obviously observing this game for how many decades I have, is defense is so much of it is effort, and so much of it is commitment. And that's where a lot of young players I don't know what goes into the mind of so many players where they just for some reason don't want to give their all defensively. I don't know if it's preserving energy. I don't know if it's just apathy. But I do believe strongly anyone can be a very solid defender if they just decide to put the effort in. And when it comes to team basketball and a 5-on-5 setting, that's where the team element comes into play, right? Where you're playing defense on a string, you have to get each other's backs. So experiences play a part as well. But no, I don't think at all the ceiling has been reached for Jordan Poole. I think, and for some reason, this just happens with a lot of younger players. I think their focus is so much on their offensive skill set, and just improving all the nuances of it, that they just for some reason don't give that extra oomph for defense. I don't know why. It's always puzzled me in all honesty, but I do think it'll get there. Yeah, I do. And I saw glimpses of it in the regular season, but you're right. In the postseason, he was eaten alive. I mean, he was a liability, plain and simple, in moments in that postseason run. But yeah, I do think it'll change. Speaking of defense, by the way, do you want to? Are you ready to move on? By the way,
Yeah, no, we can move on. I was just going to say that defense is also like, to me, it's mental. It's the mental aspect of the game versus the physical. You're talking about the team aspect and like getting to your spots, knowing where to be, knowing where to slide, knowing where to help. Like that's all about being mentally locked in. And we know, and it's funny because like with players like, for example, Jordan Poole, like you see how explosive he is on offense. Like he has the physical tools, you know what I mean? Like you see that he can move his feet, like he physically is able to, but it's just like the mental aspect of, knowing where to be on the court, and then also just, having correct defensive footwork and then effort. So to me, it's like the combination of the mental side of things, the effort, at least when it comes to players like Jordan Poole. Because to me, what we see on offense, you can see that he's an incredible athlete. Like, he has incredible speed, and he has this explosiveness about him. He can get to the rim and all this stuff. And it's like, well, like he also still has those same physical abilities on defense. It's just like, so I don't know. I mean, I think that there's still plenty of time. And Jonathan Kuminga is another one to me that like has so much potential, but like defensively to me, it's like the mental side that it isn't there, that you see that he like doesn't know where to be sometimes. And like sometimes the footwork isn't there, but like hopefully he can get there.
And defense it's just not a flashy, sexy thing. When players, especially when they reach the NBA, they're fully aware that that's not what people are looking at. They're looking at all the offensive wizardry, and obviously scoring is such an important variable. Not to mention, so many of these athletes, they don't have to worry about the defense, given whether it's high school or college. They stand out so much that that defensive effort is just not needed. They can just do what they're doing and be fine at those levels. But in the NBA, you have to focus and you have to give it 100%. And every single play, like we played this clip of Draymond Green a few weeks back where he was talking to some basketball camp athletes about the need for the intensity, the need to literally just give it your all in every single play. That's defense. Defense is effort. And for some reason, the effort just is not there with most NBA players. And the why of that could be a myriad of reasons. But that defensive stalwart we're talking about, Draymond Green, his number was recently retired by Michigan State University's alma mater. He's a graduate, played 4 years there. And any Warriors fan or anyone who's followed Draymond knows that he has a lot of love for Tom Izzo, his former head coach, who's still a head coach at Michigan State. And I found this clip, which was just really sweet. It's sentimental. It plays some sound from Draymond's actual speech at the ceremony. And it shows his love for his former head coach, Tom Izzo. Take a listen.
Coach Iz, through all the meetings, sessions, practices, games, yelling. One thing that was a constant was the love you showed and how much you cared. You were and are the true definition of wanting more success for someone than they even want for themselves. You would say, I'm living my dream. I want to see you live yours. I appreciate that. Kid from Saginaw. I never even knew it was possible to really dream. When you see these things you want, it's just like, man, I'm gonna do that. But nobody ever taught me that that was a dream and that it was possible to actually do. And you showed me that. I appreciate you. I will always, and I mean always, I will ride for you, my man. Y'all remember, it takes a village.
Yeah, he's a Draymond Green's intelligence, I don't think is highlighted enough. He's a very smart individual. He has a huge heart, which sometimes translates to words like passion or intense, right? Or people misconstrue, I think, Draymond Green at times. But he's got a huge heart, man. And I got to give love to anyone who is like Tom Izzo as a teacher, as a coach, who literally gives it their all in terms of the betterment of their students or players. Yeah, I don't know. It gave me the feels. What were your thoughts on that clip there?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. It's great to hear that there still are coaches out there that are, really showing these players the way. And like you said, helping them chase their dreams. And good for Draymond Green. I mean, it was, I don't want to say a long time coming because he hasn't been out of MSU for that long, but much deserved for him to be recognized by that university for all he did. The Big Ten Player of the Year, led them to, the conference championship, regular season and tournament in that last year. And just accomplished some incredible things for that athletics program. So congrats to him. I think it's great to see and, much deserved.
Absolutely. And before we go real quick, did Steve Kerr, going back to that interview he did last week, did he talk about Klay Thompson at all? I thought you mentioned that he did. What did he say about Klay?
Real quick. He basically said the same thing that we've been saying, Cy, that Klay Thompson's going to be better this year. He said that Klay Thompson is going to be better. He has every reason to believe that we're going to see an improved. And he also brought up consistency with Klay Thompson, a more improved and consistent Klay Thompson because of the offseason conditioning he's been able to do, an entire, offseason where he's been healthy and able to play basketball and lift and do everything to the fullest capacity because he's not recovering from an injury for the first time in over 2 years. And that, basically Klay was kind of at the tip of the iceberg at the end of last season and that he should be back and much closer, if not fully back to full strength, when the regular season does come around. So all encouraging things, basically what we've said, that, it makes a huge difference for Klay to have an entire off season, where he's able to really prepare for training camp. And he said that Klay, he's talked to him recently, Steve Kerr has, and Klay is like giddy, is like dying for training camp to start. He's living his best life, according to Steve Kerr. All great things to hear. I expect Klay Thompson to ball out.
Yeah, Klay Thompson just knows how to live, man. Good for him. And I'm seeing the same, man. Everything I'm seeing from Klay, like, if I don't know if you can bet on this, but if they set an over under for points per game for Klay Thompson, and by the way, on Friday's show, I have a really cool bit, a trivia game I want to play with you, Kylen. But if there was an over under, I don't know why I thought of that right now, but I just did. But for Friday's show, we'll do that. If the over under was 23 for Klay Thompson's points per game this year, I bet the over. I really would. 24 would be tough. That would be, I don't know what I would do there because I think his scoring's going to go up in that range. It's going to be in the 20, 23, 24 clip. He's that good of an offensive player where it's not that difficult for him to achieve that. And he's healthy, he is healthy. I'm really excited for him. I'm just excited for the season. When does it start? Is training camp's around the corner, right? Do you have a date? Mm-hmm. Do you know anything?
I don't know when the official first day of training camp is. All I know is that they're, they've got that slate in Japan starting on the 30th. But another thing is that I actually think that Klay Thompson's going to be most improved this season on defense because like think about what an incredible defensive player he was before those injuries. And like I think he's going to gain a step back. Like I think he's going to gain a step back on the defensive side of the ball because he's been doing all these off-season workouts. He's been posting videos, really trying to get back to that explosiveness that he once had. Speaking of footwork, his ability to move his feet. Because I think early on coming off the injury, it looked like he lost a step, right? You know, kind of as expected after back-to-back injuries. But I think he's going to gain some of that back. I don't know about all of it, but some of that back. So I think we're going to see some noticeable improvemements on defense from Klay Thompson. And, the guy can still shoot. So, I mean, I'm excited for what's to come.
I'm right with you. By the way, I looked it up. Training camp is September 24th in just 12 days. But I don't know if the Warriors are going to have their traditional like media day and stuff. I haven't heard anything about that yet. Just
no,
because
I haven't
like
gotten anything in my email yet. I've been
same.
Out,
and I'm wondering if they're going to delay that and postpone it to after the Japan trip because like you said,
I was wondering too. Like
they're playing September 30th and October 1st. If you have the same dates, that's what I'm looking at here.
No, those are the dates in Japan for sure.
Yeah, they play 2 games in Japan against the Washington Wizards, the team with the worst nickname and arguably all of the 4 major professional sports. I don't know why.
I think they leave for Japan. Like they leave 2 days before that, so it's like they'd only be in town for training camp for a couple days. So I don't really have time for media day before or after. So
it sounds chaotic. So, but we'll keep you posted here, obviously. As they play the Wizards. Again, I don't know who came up with the idea of Wizards as being a great name for a team. I mean, when did D&D become like awesome in sports? I don't follow. No offense to the D&D players, by the way. I played a little bit in college. I am a nerd, but I just don't see how Wizards is a cool name. Is that a cool name to you? Wizards?
No, I never got into D&D though. I did have Pokemon cards as a child, but I never played Dungeons and Dragons.
I embarrassingly admit it.
Person. All right,
I did. For like a brief moment in my life, I played it, and I'm not proud to admit that, but I did. All right, thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day.
We gotta go. We gotta wrap this
up. Sleepy Floyd was supposed to join me tomorrow. We're rescheduling that, hopefully to next week. He had some personal things come up. I hope you're okay, Sleepy. I'm sure he is, but just regardless, I hope he's fine. He's such a tremendous human being. I love Sleepy, and hopefully soon everyone who watches and listens to this show will also become familiarized with Sleepy Floyd, who still holds the playoff record for most points in a half and quarter for the Golden State Warriors, while George Karl and was his head coach and Chris Mullin was on that team. But regardless, I don't know what's coming up next. I know, Kylen, you're going to be joining me again on Friday. That is part of the regular schedule now, Mondays and Fridays. But we'll have more shows soon at some point. I just don't know when. For your second listen, get up to date on the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes every day with Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA, your daily NBA update in just 30 minutes. Again, you can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter and Instagram at Kylen Mills. That works out for you to have the same handle for both. Good stuff. That's easy. Anything else we're forgetting?
Simple. I lucked out because my first and last name, like it's never taken. Like I don't have to add any like weird letters or like numbers. Like, so I just keep it simple.
Nice. I have a huge problem with that. There's so many Saatsazes out there. All right. Thank you, everyone. I think we're done, right? We good? We out? Peace.
Yeah.